Have you ever read a book and a couple chapters in, you're like, wow, this book is going to revolutionize my life. I'm already picturing a brand new me. Ooh. And then you keep reading, and then the rest of the book is like, next! Today we're going to talk about why you should read a few chapters from the book Atomic Habits. Or you can listen to me talk for 6 minutes, get the key takeaways, and then find another book. If this is the type of content you've been looking for, please hit the subscribe button and let's get started. All right, full disclosure, I didn't actually read this book, but I did go through the entire book while I ran for 2 weeks. The book is actually really good. There is no denying it. The author is there to help, and his knowledge and experience is based on his personal growth, personal success, which I can always appreciate because that's what I'm trying to do as well, right? The problem is that someone like me who makes a hobby out of reading self-help and personal growth, uh, there's a lot of overlap in terms of what I already know. But if you're not into that genre, if this is your first time, I think this is a great gateway drug. Furthermore, there are some really key concepts that even for me are brand new. It's super important for us self-learners to get information from people who has actually made it and be able to verbalize those information back to us so that we can, figure out what works for us because no two humans the same, right? And we can learn from their mistakes, learn from their experience, leverage what works, insert it into our DNA. That is what I try to achieve every single day, and I think this is one of those books that will help you do that. The number one key takeaway, and hence the title of the book, is about micro improvements. It's human nature to kind of undervalue the potential of micro improvements. If we in fact actually make these sub 1% improvements every single day, it compounds really fast, and soon enough you'll be able to reach mastery. But we subconsciously undervalue it because from day to day we don't see much change. The number one key takeaway is the same reason why the book is called Atomic Habits. It has to do with micro improvements. So in other words, every single day, if you can make yourself practice or learn something that you want to improve in, do sub 1% improvements every single day, it'll quickly compound into something amazing. You can reach mastery this way easily. You don't have to put in a shit ton of hours doing a full-time job for your new improvement. You don't have to necessarily put in a full-time job to see the gain that you're seeking. You don't have to put in a full-time job time. You don't have to put in the efforts of a full-time job to see improvements. You just need consistency and you need consistent improvements. You don't have to put a full-time you don't have to put in a full-time effort to see you don't have to put in a full-time effort. You don't have to put in the full-time job equivalent of efforts to see substantial improvement. You don't have to put in a full-time job equivalent of you don't have to put in a full-time job equivalent of efforts. You just have to put in consistent effort every single day, ideally anyway, because cheat days happens, right? The number one key takeaway from this book is the same reason why the book is called Atomic Habits. It has to do with micro improvements and building a long-term habit. Effectively, we humans, we underestimate the substantialness of micro improvements because we're so tied up on seeing how crappy we currently are and the day-to-day operations, right? So how much improvement I was yesterday compared to the day before. And if it's like, around 1%, which is not ill-conceivable, then you're essentially not seeing any improvements, right? But in fact, these micro improvements, they compound very well. So you will reach mastery as long as you're consistent about making these gains. And to make these gains, you have to make sure that you're practicing with the right mindset, because if you're practicing shit, you'll gain shit. Furthermore, it's actually very likely for you to surpass people who are naturally talented because a lot of them who banked off of their natural talent, they subconsciously become afraid of putting in the efforts because they're afraid of proving themselves wrong, that they're not that naturally talented. But in fact, if they actually did put in the effort, even, Olympic level or whatever the equivalent is. So fundamentally, that means that you can reach mastery in a very, very substantial way. The second key takeaway should be printed on a t-shirt. And it is being in motion is not the same thing as taking actions. The idea is that a lot of us, once we've convinced ourselves to make a change in our lives, we'll do a ton of research to figure out how to make that change, ton of planning to put together the perfect idea in terms of executing that, new life goal or whatever it may be. But in fact, all of that time is wasted because you could have been using that time to actually making those improvements. If you do too much planning, you waste a shit ton of time. And by the time you actually decide to execute, it might be either too late or your whole roadmap doesn't make any sense anymore. By the way, my personal suggestion around this is that it's super important for you to know what problem you're trying to solve or what skill set you're trying to gain and why. Once you know that, the solution, it just needs to be 70, 80% there, and that is good enough for you to execute. The idea behind this is that the sooner you start executing, the sooner we start learning on the go. And if you fail, you just got to own up to it. There's nothing wrong with failure. You got to learn to not hurt. You just got to accept for what it is, learn from it, try to see if you can come up with patterns. And soon enough, what's going to happen is that you're going to be able to learn faster and faster because you've already failed in so many ways. You've seen the pattern, you've made these improvements. Once you become better and better at spotting issues and seeing, workarounds, corner cases, all of these great things, soon you look like the guy that instinctively knows shit with minimum amount of efforts. And that essentially is the biggest difference between a senior person in the workforce versus a junior or associate one. The third key takeaway is more insinuated rather than fully spoken, although I guess it spans across a few chapters. But the idea is that you need to like your new habit. You might love your end goal, but if you hate the habit that you need to reach that end goal, you're fucked. So you need to figure out how to enjoy the everyday practice that you have to put in, the new habit that you have to put in order for you to reach the end goal that you'll want. The book actually highlights several approaches, and many of these approaches are not news. Most self-help books talk about them, but there are some really original ones. One of them has to do with time boxing your new habit. The idea is that instead of putting yourself in this mindset that you need to put in 2-3 hours every single day to establish a new habit, you just commit to 10-20 minutes every single day. Atomic, micro. And you also want to put yourself in a good mindset. So ideally, you want to attach your new habit to a good experience. Ideally, a habit that you already partake in, that you enjoy. So for example, you eat and maybe you super enjoy dinner. So right after dinner, you do your new habit. This way you attach your new habit to a positive emotion and you're at a good mindset when you're, going through your new habit. As you improve your time box habit, will adjust accordingly because eventually you'll pass the steep learning curve and you'll start enjoying the new habit and then adjust and improve faster, etc., etc. I think it's a great approach. All in all, I think this book is super well written. I think it's definitely worth it if you don't listen to many self-help books. This is a great starter. If you do, I highly recommend the audio version. Multitask your way through it. I think there's enough information for you to justify the cost of, $3-4. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the content. If you have any questions or concerns, please leave a comment. If you liked it, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to working with you next time. Thank you.